Hey everybody, what's up? It's your boy MJ and welcome to the Black Wine Guy Experience. My guests today are American journalists, authors, and wine critics, a wife and husband duo who jointly wrote the wine column Tastings and created the beloved Open That Bottle Night, Dottie, Gaiter, and John Brecher. Both born in, see, this says both born in Florida. You weren't born in Florida. Where you died?
No, I was born in Red Bank, New Jersey.
Yeah. All right. Well, I live in Red Bank, New Jersey.
Get out of here.
Get out of town. So Dottie was born in Red Bank, New Jersey, Monmouth County, home of also Count Basie and the Count Basie Theater.
That's all I knew about it.
But John was born in Florida and met on their first day at the Miami Herald on June 4th, 1973 at 9 a.m. Wow, that's very specific.
Yeah. Yeah. I was wearing a miniskirt.
Well, now I understand why it was love at first sight, as they have said. And in 1998, an editor at the Wall Street Journal, where both Gaiter and Brecher worked, asked them to write a wine column along with other news articles, and thus Tastings was born. Within 2 years, Gaiter and Brecher were allowed to solely focus on their wine column. In 2000, Dottie and John created Open That Bottle Night, an annual international celebration of wine and friendship, where participants are encouraged to dig out a special unopened bottle of wine and share it with their family and friends. Dottie has worked at the Herald, the New York Times, and the Wall Street Journal. John has worked at the Herald, Newsweek, the Wall Street Journal, and Bloomberg News. They're also authors on books on wine, including Love by the Glass, Tasting Notes from a Marriage, 2003, Wine for Every Day and Every Occasion, 2004, and several editions of the Wall Street Journal Guide to Wine. Their papers were recently added to the Warren Winiarski Wine Writers Collection at the University of California at Davis. For you guys who might be new to wine, that is the big perennial wine school in California. And they've appeared regularly on TV from Martha Stewart to the Today Show. And they are now both senior editors at Grape Collective and co-author of the bi-weekly column, Love by the Glass. Welcome, Dottie and John. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Gee, no, that's pretty comprehensive.
Yeah, I have a good research team, and and you know, also when you even when like people interview me, like you're like, man, did I do all that? Like it really, when someone reads it, you're like, because you're living it, you're just in it, you know.
Yeah.
But this is quite impressive. Newsweek, Bloomberg News. I'm like, how do I keep getting these amazing guests to come on my show?
You're a pretty impressive interviewer. That's how you do it.
Well, thank you,
Yeah.
thank you. So,
Mercy.
yeah. Tell us about the wine we're drinking this evening.
Well, this is
There you go.
this is Camins to Wine, and it's made by Tara Gomez, who's a Native American winemaker, and the founding and I guess only winemaker that Keto Wines will ever have, and her wife Maria Tariba. Together they made this, and they have this tiny winery in Lompoc. And they make 3 different types of cool climate Syrah, and also Gruner Veltliner, a still one, and a sparkler from Santa Rita Hills, and then 3 or 4 other varietals from other parts of the county.
Yeah, Victoria James brought the Gruner when she came.
Yeah.
She wasn't drinking because she was expecting with Simone. So this is my second wine. Very good wines. Keto Wines, if you want to just mention, I know they just announced that they're...
We broke the news.
yeah.
Yeah, closing after all those years.
Yeah.
And the only reason that the tribe gave us was that they looked at their portfolio and decided not to be in the wine business at this time.
Right.
So maybe, you know, there are a lot of people hoping that at this time is an important qualifier, that maybe not forever.
Yeah, yeah.
Camins to Dreams is our current column in Grape Collective. It's a wonderful love story. And so just in time for Valentine's Day, there's so much love and there's so many couples in wine. And it seemed like a good time to focus on one of those couples.
Well, this show is actually going to drop on Valentine's Day.
Really?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Just working out that way. So this is perfect. so we have an extra very super duper special episode for you guys today. And Dottie's got on her red. She's ready for that.
Always.
And her signature
Always.
red glass, or signature
Always.
red flames. So, so let's start at the beginning. Dottie, I know you said you were born in Red Bank. How old were you when you moved to Florida?
I was about 6 months old. And
Oh, wow.
Yeah. My family had moved. My parents were both from New Jersey. My dad's folks were from Harbor Island, the Bahamas. But,
Oh, wow.
he grew up in Seaside Heights. And a school in Toms River that he and his 9 siblings all graduated from a few years ago named the street in front of the school Gaiter Way, because my Bahamian grandparents could have settled anywhere. They were British subjects, but they came to Toms River. And yeah.
I'm blown away.
And,
'cause I was,
and all 10 of them graduated from that high school. Many had graduate degrees. Most of them became teachers. Yeah. So where was I? I digress, as you say.
oh, yeah.
I was going to say, you should drive by and check out Gaiter Way.
I'm going to check it out because I grew up I'm from New Jersey. I grew up in Monmouth County. Toms River is Ocean County. But, like, you know, there's not a whole lot of people of color in Monmouth and Ocean counties. And the fact that they moved there then is like they must have been one of the first black families there.
Yeah, well, my uncle Cleveland was the first black student to play sports there. And I didn't know that about him. And when I was a reporter at the New York Times, they sent me to do a story about something else. And the people I met said, Gaiter, are you related to? And I said, well, there are not that many Gaiters. But my dad had been teaching at Florida A&M University in Tallahassee, and he wanted to get a master's degree. And no school in Florida would admit black people to its graduate programs.
Wow.
So he moved the family back to New Jersey, and that's why I was born in Red Bank.
Oh, okay. Got it.
So when he got his degree at NYU, he moved the family back to
Well,
Florida.
I mean, there's not really anything on par with NYU down in Florida anyway, so it kind of worked out for Dad.
Yeah.
I mean, University of Miami, but it's not NYU.
No.
Although we do have a certain thing about our universities in the Northeast, but anyway. So you were in Tallahassee.
Mm-hmm.
And where were you born, John?
I was born in New York City.
Okay.
But grew up in Jacksonville, Florida. Not a garden spot of the world. My father moved down there to be an accountant for a large company, and when they wanted to move him back, he said, "No, I love the sun.
Yeah.
I'm staying." So he stayed, and we stayed. We were, even back then in Jacksonville, there were not a lot of Jewish families in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
I mean, we had the experience once of a very nice family who invited us over and said, "Look, I know you're Jewish and therefore you can't eat ham, so I made lobster," which was great with me. I never liked ham.
And to this day doesn't like ham.
So, but it was kind of that kind of place, and it was, but nevertheless, it was, that was where I grew up, and then was lucky enough to get into Columbia to come up to college, and then I left Columbia, and the day I graduated on a Friday. On Monday, I started the Miami Herald, and as it happened, so did Dottie.
Oh, my God. So where did you do your undergraduate studies?
The University of Missouri at Columbia, Missouri.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was there for 3 days before I saw another black student, and he was from Ghana and wouldn't, deign to recognize me.
Exactly.
You're just an American
Exactly.
Negro.
Is that right? A lot of people don't realize there's this distinction of
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I tell people all the time I'm not African American because I obviously I did my DNA. I have blood from Africa, but a continental African will shun your black ass.
Well, that's what happened. I was so happy to see him. He was like, "Do I know you?" Yeah, very few black students there then.
Yeah. And so then that was your first job too, right out of school, Journalism, was Miami Herald?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I have to ask, was this like a progressive paper time, or just they would just hire him? What I mean, that's like it's just interesting that like,
Wow. Well,
what was it like there?
Well, Miami has always been a great news town.
Yeah.
It was a wonderful, wonderful place to be a young journalist. Wonderful place to be a young journalist because there was such amazing stuff happening. And Miami has always been a very welcoming place, very diverse.
Right, because it's basically in the Caribbean.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of tension there. There's always been a lot of tension, but at the same time, there have always been all sorts of kind of different people. And the Herald at that time was trying very hard to reflect its community.
Yeah, that's great. I think like as I look at Florida and you look at places like New Orleans, I saw a documentary about it, and someone said like New Orleans is the northernmost point of the Caribbean, and so Miami's further below that, and there's just this melting pot of cultures, and this was even before 1980, like so it was just always diverse.
Right.
So. Was there an orientation? Did you meet at the water cooler? Did you meet at the copier? Like, what was
well, my parents taught me to be not even on time, but early.
Right.
So though our day was supposed to start at 9, I was already there, and I'd been seated at my desk, and fro, miniskirt, and John was the second reporter to arrive. The second of 3 to start that day, and the managing editor, Steve Rogers, what was his title?
He was like the Metro editor.
Metro editor brings over this handsome guy and says, "John Brecher, this is Dorothy Gaiter," and that he's from Columbia's storied student newspaper, Columbia Daily Spectator, and that's just the student papers of student papers, college papers.
right?
So I stood up and said, salami, salami, bologna. And then we looked at each other, and it was just, it was one of those lightning strike moments. It really, I'd seen a lot of TV and movies, but I didn't think that stuff really happened, but it did.
Yeah.
You should have seen her then. She was so cute.
I can reach you.
I know. I was like, she's pretty cute now, man.
Where's that corkscrew?
It's safe. You're safe.
Well, he's safe for now.
You gotta go home with her, man.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
No, I think that's, with my wife, I mean, we didn't get married till we met in college, but like she came out of an elevator in a dorm, and I looked, I was like, who is that girl? I do understand those moments. Like we didn't get it together like you guys did, but it is like it's in a moment. You just have a moment with someone.
Yeah.
What type of work what type of assignments did they have you on down there?
I was general assignment, which meant that whatever happened, I was on it. So I covered cops. I eventually covered schools. I covered a shishi suburb called Coral Gables.
Yeah, I heard of that.
Yeah, and we eventually bought a home there. But once they assigned me to go to different houses just at random and interview the residents about their taxes. And eventually I got to the police department, and they said, "Oh, it was you."
Yes,
yeah, you were ahead of me.
I know exactly.
And I was South Dade bureau chief,
Okay.
which meant I was a one-person bureau in Homestead, Florida. Anyone who's familiar with Miami now will be surprised to hear that back then anything south of Kendall, 88th Street, was considered agriculture.
Wow.
There was nothing down there.
Wow.
Down then. So I covered this vast area that was essentially all farmlands, which was incredibly cool to me because I'd be driving around saying, "Oh my God, beans grow out of the ground. This is incredible."
Right.
Oh, I mean, to me it was all like amazing. I couldn't believe what I was seeing down there. And my only regret is that I didn't buy any land while I was down there. Because I wouldn't be here.
Yeah,
I'm like, what you could have got like a brownstone in Harlem for like $20,000 in like 1995.
Yeah, condos on Miami Beach.
Yeah.
In the 80s.
Yeah.
People said, if you're interested, go now.
Right.
You can pick up something.
Right.
Yeah. Our first date was a Bob Dylan concert.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, John was standing at the city desk when he was handed 2 tickets. And being the gentleman that he is, there was a woman standing next to him, and he thought he should invite her. And Gail Pollard said, hell no, I don't like that honky music. Ask Dottie Gaiter. So he had permission then to, yeah.
We'd kind of been, we'd been going out a lot, like for lunch before then. This was kind of our first official date.
Right.
Compliments of the Miami Herald, which
I was
gave
like,
us the
wow.
tickets.
And then it's Bob Dylan. I mean, damn, that's a damn good first date.
Yeah, it was during the oil shortage.
Oh, I remember that. I was
Remember
like,
that?
yeah, like we used to have odd even days. To put on the last digit of your license plate, and we were rationing gas.
Mm-hmm.
That was 73, 74. I remember going
Yeah.
to gas with my dad. Yeah.
Yep, it took us forever to get there because we stopped and gassed up, I think.
I did a story during that time of a gas station that was gouging people by charging $1 a gallon.
Yeah,
Can you imagine?
I know. $1.
$1.
Because it was like even in '86 when we got our, literally, gas was still like 46 cents.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Or was it 50 cents? We get $1. We get a gallon of gas. When that was like in '86, that was like my friend's first car. You're like, let's get $1. Let's go somewhere. So I mean, $1 and because what was it? It was like people were tripping because it went from 5 cents to 15.
Right.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, and now it's, California gas is probably like $6 a gallon now because it's like $4 in Jersey.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
and yet they keep making money.
Yes.
Record profits.
On the way home from that date, John said, maybe I can show you the U-pick fields. Not knowing that I love that Jersey corn.
Jersey,
Right.
people sleep on Jersey. For you guys don't know, so Florida would be the Sunshine State, and California is the Golden State, and is Missouri the Show Me State?
It is.
All right.
Yeah.
New Jersey is the Garden State. New Jersey has more cranberry bogs than Massachusetts.
I didn't know
We
that.
have cranberries, blueberries. We're very known for the corn and the tomatoes.
Well, my mother would say, if you think you've tasted corn, you haven't until you've had Jersey corn.
Yeah.
And his dad was a tomato freak. We would take him U-picking, and he would eat a tomato like it was an apple.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when you're out there in the field, that it is. There's so like it's literally in like a tomato will be like a peach. The juice is running down your arm,
Yeah.
So I love it. So Bob Dylan, and then let's go pick fruit together.
And I don't really like fruit, so it was out of love. But I didn't know at the time that she's just crazy about fruit, especially strawberries. And there are U-pick strawberry fields to this day in Florida and in Miami where you can go and you pick strawberries right off the vine. And the truth is, I don't even like strawberries, but I love being in the field.
Yeah.
They're so beautiful. They're so fragrant. They're so fresh. And we go into a field, and the great thing is we pay for about 1 pound, and Dottie eats 6 more pounds
There you
while
go.
we're there.
So we took this fresh produce back to his apartment, and there was one bottle of wine, Andre Cold Duck,
Oh,
that
I
his
remember
folks
Cold Duck.
his folks had given him as a housewarming present, and that was the first wine we shared.
The classics.
Hey,
The classics.
Everyone starts somewhere.
No, I'm laughing because I tell people all the time, don't poo-poo White Zinfandel. It saved the California wine industry. Okay. And then you have Franzia, or usually we are going to start with something sweeter because obviously you weren't wine on the table when you were there. And I have a good friend who's Jewish, and she tells a story. It's so funny. Like they'd had one bottle of Manischewitz like her whole life for Passover, and then their father would just put it in a liquor cabinet. And then he would add water. It'd be all gummed up, and he'd put water in it for Passover.
And it would last forever.
Forever.
Yeah.
And for Thanksgiving, my father would buy a bottle of Corbel champagne.
I know.
I mean, Korbel is like so many of us also grew up with Korbel. But, but that was a celebration to us. My father was who never opened a bottle of wine, except for Manischewitz, was so excited opening the bottle of Korbel. It kind of beginning of the holidays when he opened that bottle of Korbel.
Yeah, so you got Korbel. What was it? You had Manischewitz. Wait, who did that? Stevie? Not Stevie. Sammy Davis Jr. Manischewitz. Remember the commercial?
Right. Oh, man.
I'd forgotten that.
I'd forgotten that, too.
Oh, man. We're showing our age, aren't we?
I'm showing my age. I remember that commercial.
Yeah.
And then the other big one, like, this whole rosé all day, and all the stuff, all the hashtags. But like rosé has been around forever, particularly, where it's known from like Bandol in the south of France. But Mateus rosé.
Mm-hmm. Mateus keeps you loose.
Yeah, and Mateus, I never heard that one.
Remember that?
Yeah, I remember reading Rio Nidi on Ice. Now that's nice.
Now that's nice.
Yes.
Yeah. So those brands, like a lot of people poo-poo stuff, but that's what we had in America as wine consumers. You know what I mean? So that's funny. So, and Cold Duck was that? And that was like almost like it was red, right? It was red. Yeah. Yeah. I remember because I've had it before. I just haven't had it I think I had it with some Cisco or something when I was like 18. We were going in. But yeah, but like you look at that Cold Duck, I'm like, okay, a very sweet sparkling Shiraz, if you will. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. A super sweet Lambrusco, and they become like gateways to other wines. So you enjoyed this bottle of Cold Duck on this date, and then what's going on with you two? Like, how long did you date? When did you get married officially?
Oh gosh.
Well, we didn't get married until 1979, so it was 6 years.
Okay.
We were 21 when we met.
21.
That's really young to get married.
No,
I know a lot of people do it.
I agree.
And it works.
I didn't get married until I was 48. Okay. So I'm not arguing with you.
No, I know. But 21.
Yeah.
When we looked at our daughters when they were 21, we thought, what the hell were we thinking? Oh, my heavens, they're children.
Yeah.
But we were 21, and we seemed to ourselves that we were all grown up.
Yeah.
So we lived in sin for 5 years.
Okay.
Yep.
How was your family's about that?
My mother argued for 2 days. My dad had passed by then.
Okay.
But she just thought that was just terrible. But after she got it out of her system, my folks never hit us. They talked us to death.
see, that's that West. Well, some West Indians get hit, but like my mom was from Georgia. She hit first, talk later.
No, I would beg, just hit me, get it over with. But
there is something about it. I don't want to be punished.
Oh no,
give me the lashes.
But I mean, Dorothy Jean, I'm so disappointed in you. Dorothy J.
Oh, when they use the middle name.
Oh, it's serious.
Yeah.
Yeah. But she fell in love with him.
And my parents felt the same way. It's like they just loved Dottie. They didn't care if we were married or not. They just loved Dottie. She was the daughter my father never had and always wanted. So they were great.
Yeah, he was 3 boys, 3 girls. So we,
Oh, it's perfect.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It really was.
That's awesome. So,
he proposed over Cristal.
Oh, see, there you go.
A bottle that I'd given him.
Did you regift?
Oh.
And Dottie said, "Where's the Cold Duck?"
But he couldn't get the cork out, and he was looking very, very pale. Now John is one of the whitest white people you'll ever see, and he was pale, and I was sure he was dying, because he can pop a cork in his sleep,
right?
But he could not open this bottle of champagne, and we just left his parents' home. We were doing the 2-step with Christmas, going to Tallahassee to see my mother, and then going to Jacksonville to see. So, and his dad never called as a follow-up, but for some reason he called hours after we got home when John was about to propose, and John disappeared, and came back with pliers And I thought, what is he doing with that?
My father had said, I told my father what was going on. He said, I can't get the cork out. My father said, use pliers. And basically I said to him, Dad, you open one bottle of champagne a year. It's Corbel. And believe me, trust me, you don't use a pair of pliers on a bottle of Cristal. He said, just take out the pliers and open the bottle. So I thought, okay, fine. I'll go get the pliers. So I went and got the pliers. And if that hadn't worked, we still wouldn't be married. I never would have proposed.
And his mother gave him special glasses to propose with. These were hollow stem coupe, just lovely glasses that had been given to her by her sister as a wedding present.
Oh, wow.
And we still have those.
That is, I love that. Like, this is a love story.
Yeah.
I love that.
Love wins.
Yes. So, what? How long were you at the Herald?
See, the first time we were there from 73 to 80.
Okay.
We always want to live in New York City. And so we were lucky enough to get jobs, me at Newsweek, Dottie at the New York Times. And we were just over the moon that we were actually able to move to New York City. We were having a wonderful time in New York. In Miami, it was a wonderful, wonderful place to be a journalist. But we always wanted to live in New York City. So we grabbed at the chance and moved up here.
We actually were looking for an apartment with 2 bedrooms, and our realtor said, why 2 bedrooms? And John said, one for the wine, and she laughed. She said, people can't afford a room just for their wine. But that's the way we were thinking.
Well, I guess back then, who collected wine, if you really think about it, right?
I guess you're right.
It's not, just people who were really, now, people, it's just different. So I could see that. But also, you could afford it. What was like a 2-bedroom back then? The 80s, right?
We couldn't afford it.
No, we couldn't afford it. We ended up with a 1-bedroom on 20th and Park Avenue South, which now is cool. At the time, was totally desolate. We found an apartment. The only reason we got it was because it was the only thing we could afford for $450, and it had no windows. So we brought all of these.
Welcome to New York. You're from sunny
Exactly.
Miami. You're picking your own vegetables.
All of my plants died in like a week. I couldn't believe it. We had floor-to-ceiling windows that looked onto a brick wall.
Yeah.
But the apartment had a deck.
Okay.
And that's where the wine was in the bedroom.
The wine was in the bedroom.
Right. And John's mother came to visit, and she said, I can't believe the bedroom is so cold. And John said, but the wine is comfortable. And she said, you idiot, your wife is cold. So, yeah, we had to negotiate the temperature.
So you guys got that big into wine after you got engaged, or just when did that? Because the fact that you wanted to have a wine room, that progressed quickly.
It did. When we first met in '73 and we had our cold duck, it wasn't that much longer after that Dottie was coming down to see me. I was living in South Dade because I was the South Dade bureau chief, and she was coming down to visit, and I was trying to impress her, so I didn't know anything about wine. I don't think I'd ever been into a wine store, but I went into a Crown Liquors, still a big chain in Miami, and I didn't know what to get. And on the counter, they had some sort of a nondescript French white and red. They were like $3.99 a bottle. I said, "Oh, I'll have a bottle of white and a bottle of red." And the guy said, "If you buy a whole case, I'll give it to you for $2.99 a bottle." And I said, "Bingo! This is really going to impress her, a whole case of wine." And we tasted that, and it just took us someplace. It just touched us. I have no idea what it was, and we'll never know what it was. But whatever it was, it made us realize that wine can take you someplace. Mm-hmm. And it really changed us. And after that, all hell broke loose. And what happened at that point, because obviously we're both journalists, we weren't making a lot of money, but we decided that we could afford one mixed case at a time.
Okay.
And we set a budget, which was $72. so that
Which was a lot of money.
That actually is $6 a bottle back then. That's a good price.
Well,
right.
yeah.
And so what we could do is we could have one bottle that was 9 and one was 3,
Mhm.
and it would even out.
Yep.
Then we bought Hugh Johnson's World Atlas and Leon Adams Wines of America. So we'd get the bottles, and we'd go home with these 12 $6 bottles, and we'd look them up, and we'd say, "Oh my God, this is right next to Lafite. This is in South America. This is in wherever."
Yeah.
And it opened our eyes.
Yeah. I think that's the thing. I always tell people, get to know importers, get to know winemakers, get to know vineyards, right, and regions, right? So like you said, like you could buy a bottle of Burgundy that abuts DRC, you know, like I mean, it's stuff like that, or like Lafitte's neighbor, right, or you know, I remember when like Agliore first came to the market, like it's right across the street from Dom Perignon, and it was like $39 a bottle. Now it's not anymore. But like once you begin to understand those things, you find the bargains, right? You find the values in wine, and there's so many values out there. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, today especially. My goodness. And then we found like people at work. And we joined Les Amis de Vin, which was nationwide then. But finding your people to drink wine with, because we could only afford so many.
Yeah.
But together,
Right.
what the group could bring to the table. But the books were wonderful. And exploring your own taste. I remember our first Carwad might have been one of those $20 bottles. But
it was actually, it was.
Was it?
It was, but also our first Lafite was, you're too young to remember this, but the 68 Lafite was considered 68 in general was considered a complete throwaway.
Yeah, I know, because I'm born in '68, and I was like, shit, I don't get good birthday bottles.
No.
51, same thing.
Yeah.
Horrible vintage.
Although Kevin Israeli hooked me up, because there were a few, and one of them, you have 68 Vega Sicilia is just because Vega, but he didn't bring that. But he brought 68 Heights Martha's, and it was it was amazing. Signature, menthol, fresh.
We had it on our honeymoon.
Yeah. Yep. And so, it was, we went into a wine shop, and they had 68 Lafite. This was, I don't know, probably 74. And it was $8 a bottle. And we couldn't believe that we could have a first growth for $8 a bottle. And everybody had said it was terrible, and it was a terrible vintage. And nobody has anything good to say about it, but we never tasted a first growth, and we'd never held one in our hands. We'd never looked at the label. And it was really transformative.
I love, like, just the passion you have for wine is just coming through when you talk about just looking, like what it feels like to look at the label, right? And to feel in your hand. And that's one of the things that I find fascinating. I mean, I came into the wine business late 90s. I came in and I worked at Acker, so it was auctions and cult wines but I would talk to John's father, Michael, like DRC was like $20 a bottle, like in the 70s. It was like, this shit was, you couldn't give, like nobody wanted this stuff.
Yeah.
They wanted the cold duck. Like literally, like, and that's another thing too. You said one of the greatest bargains is what are called off vintages at first of Bordeaux, places like Bordeaux, because especially back then, those wines were, obviously they still age, but back then they were just, you had to lay them down. So those older vintages, the off vintages would develop in the bottle, and different flavors would come out.
We didn't collect intentionally. We just bought batches that we could drink.
Yeah.
That.
Right. I'm pretty much the same way. I'm not trying to leave this to anybody. I'm like, if I see it, I'm gonna buy it, and then I'm like, oh shit, look at all this wine.
Right.
Yeah. That's how it happens. That's how it happens.
And I also like what you said about tasting groups. I think people should find tasting groups, I mean, it's a little trickier because we're in this time we're in. I mean, you can do it virtually, but there's something like about being in a room and people bringing bottles and sharing. And also, like we could have did this virtually. Like, I'm glad I've done like a few virtual, but it was impossible. But we could have this same bottle from the same vintage, but when you're sharing from the same bottle, then you're actually getting a more complete, like your impressions, my impressions. We know it's from the same bottle versus like there's bottle variation. So
Right.
there's so much value if people can get their little tasting root bubble and like you said, and then collectively, like I have friends like expensive wines. Okay, the three of us will go in and okay. I don't have $600, but I can scrape together $200 for a $600 bottle. Like so. The more people you get in, you get to try some of these,
Right.
more storied wines.
But one asshole in the group can ruin it.
Words to live by.
Words to live by. Really, you have to choose carefully.
Oh no, I agree. I mean,
Really.
it's just like one bad apple, like one you don't
And,
want.
and it's got to be a man.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, no, probably.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
Nah,
trying to be.
Nah. You're trying to be correct?
No, I'm not trying to be correct. I was
It's
like,
a guy.
yeah, it's a guy.
It's a guy.
It is a guy.
It's a guy.
It's a guy.
We.
I'm just leaving it alone. I was like, it's a guy. Works on Wall Street. I was like,
I don't know if you've ever heard our story, our asshole story.
no, please. This is what we're here for. We're here for asshole stories.
But when we were writing the Wall Street Journal column for 11 years, one of the things, 12 years, one of the things that we discovered was that from time to time we would get asshole letters. And they would basically be people who wanted to tell us we made a mistake about something.
Yeah.
Obviously, we were always interested in hearing about whether or not we made a mistake. Nothing more important to us than accuracy.
Yeah.
But more often than not, they just didn't really know what they were talking about and were just trying to show off for their friends, for their family. And the amazing thing about it was that every one of these was from a man. Every one of them. This was back in, this was when things used to come like on email and before that actually in letters. And everyone was a man. Everyone except one. One email came once that was an asshole letter, and it was from a woman.
And he was so excited. He ran into my office and said, "It's from a woman."
It's the exception that proves the rule, right?
Yeah, I forgot what it was.
Meritage.
Meritage. Yeah, we said meritage rhymes with heritage, and
It's meritage.
that's exactly what this woman was alleging.
Yeah.
And we said, no, we're sorry. And here's the link from the Meritage Association explaining that it rhymes with heritage. So we always responded kindly. We were taught that at the Miami Herald. You never hang up. You're always polite. So we get this email back from a woman who says, I left my computer for a minute and my husband sat down and sent you that. Still 100% guys. Yep. That has not changed. Yep.
Yeah,
Why is that? What's
well,
wrong with you all?
we're guys.
That explains it.
I'm like,
That explains it.
There are reasons. We do with DNA and chemicals running through your brain and your body, and we just do stupid shit. Guys do stupid shit. I don't know what to tell you. But I always tell people, I'm like, I might mess up your name.
He's Brecher.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you've said that to me before when we met, and my brain, and it's not disrespectful. Thank you. And I
You're
don't
forgiven.
mind being corrected.
You're forgiven.
And even I'm not trying to learn French. I'm not trying to learn Italian. I'll do my best with this stuff.
Same.
But I've never put myself out there like an expert where someone, you don't need to come at me, bro. I'm like, don't you need to come at me, bro? It's not that hectic. As much as I love it, it is just wine.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you said you guys moved to New York. You got an apartment. It's too cold in the apartment, but it has to be at least 56 degrees for the wine.
No. Yeah, we were young.
Yeah, and it was wonderful. We had just the most wonderful time. We were in New York from 80 to 84.
Okay.
It was terrific. We loved it. We were young. We lived at 15 West 72nd Street, right next to the Dakota. So we had these really rich, ritzy neighbors.
Yeah.
it was a really magical time. But then Miami blew up.
Literally.
Just blew up.
Yeah.
And the people at the Herald called and said, "We need you to come back."
Like Liberty City riots and all that stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mariel Potliff, Liberty City riots.
Cop corruption,
Right.
The cocaine cowboys.
Yeah, cocaine. Oh
So
my
many,
God.
so many dead people that they actually rented Ryder refrigerated trucks because the morgue was too full.
Wow.
So the publisher of the paper flew up and took us to dinner and said, "Look, we've talked about rebuilding the city, and we've talked about who could help us do that. Would you all come back?" And when we were 21, we said, if there were an honest newspaper someplace in a fight for its life, for all the good things, we would drop whatever we were doing and go. And here he was calling us on it, and we loved being here. We'd worked so hard to be here.
Yeah.
And we thought about it and thought about it, and we said, well, these are the principles that we believe in. So we left. We moved back to Miami in 1984 and bought a house in Coral Gables. Yeah.
That must have been a trip.
It was.
And at that house, we said, if we're going to live in Miami and we're giving up New York, there's one thing that we can do that we could never do in New York. And we turned a room that was not our own bedroom
Right.
into a room with 990 spaces for wine.
Yeah, we hired John Miranda, a carpenter, to transform. It was the maid's room.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we don't have a maid.
I was,
No.
I'm kidding. I know. I was just going to give you some guff.
And we also didn't have 990 bottles of wine.
Right,
But
right.
we could dream.
Well, you have to set the vision, right? Because
Yeah.
if you wouldn't want to do it for 100 and then you got 200, so I'd rather have spaces that I need to fill.
We did pretty well.
We did.
We really did pretty well, and we loved that old house. We had a security system that would alert us if the wine room got too warm.
Right. That's right.
That's pretty high tech back in like the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, but remember crime.
Yeah,
you
well, I know. I mean,
yeah. So we had the whole house,
Yeah.
but that room was a temperature thing. But we were awakened one night at maybe 2:00 in the morning, dark. Our house was surrounded by cops with guns drawn in Coral Gables, and we sort of threw towels around us and went downstairs, and it turned out that our wine room had gotten too warm. And the idiot security company had called the cops. And they came loaded for bear. I mean, I gave that guy what for the next day? The security, I mean, he could have gotten me killed.
Yeah,
Probably
yeah.
not you.
Yeah,
But,
right.
what are you doing in that
Right,
house?
right.
But it was terrifying.
Are you okay, sir? Blink twice if you need help.
Does she have you?
I'm okay, but not this Latour. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
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 And then before we had a chance to fill the wine room with 990 bottles, we moved back to New York. It was 6 years, and we had our first daughter, Media, in 1989, and we always
vintage.
knew that we wanted to come back to New York, and literally the moment we found out we were pregnant with our second daughter, Zoe, I called the Wall Street Journal, where I had worked previously, and said, we're ready. And they said, great, come back.
They had been contacting us over the years to say, when you're ready, let us know. And they made it happen in like 11 days. It was amazing. So we moved back here.
All right. Well, listen, we got to take a quick break, and we'll talk about your return to New York when we come back. Okay, we are back, and you guys are back in New York.
We are.
Which must have been cool. And you were having your second daughter, Zoe, right?
Yes, we had. I went into labor with Zoe the minute the movers arrived with our stuff from Miami. Said, "This is too much. I can't move us in." So I had a baby. But yeah, that's what happened. But while looking for that apartment on the Upper West Side, we discovered an apartment that had a costume closet. The apartment had been owned by an opera singer. And this deep, deep, deep closet, we said, that's going to be our wine room. So we once again had a carpenter trick it out for wine.
And then our closing. So we found the perfect apartment. Dottie was, I actually found it because Dottie couldn't fly.
I was so pregnant.
She was so pregnant. And so everything's moving at an incredibly fast pace. We're trying to get the closing done so that Dottie won't give birth before we have the apartment. We rush to the closing. Everything's going great. We're going to close on the apartment, and everything's moving through. And suddenly, the lawyer for the other side says to Dottie, "And could I see your ID, please?"
And I was so pregnant that I wasn't carrying a purse when I was with him, right? I mean, nothing.
Oh, right. And
nothing of added weight.
And you do have CID because the notary.
Well, but we didn't know that.
Right.
Nobody had told us, and so the bank lawyer started to close up his papers and say, "Well, then we can't close today." And my dear wife, who is such a calm person, I've never seen her like this before or after, has this giant stomach, and she stood up from the table,
like
and
an orca.
everybody was just kind of like looking at her.
And John's sort of like she's standing, he's making her look like she grew to Shaq proportions. She's 7 feet tall.
Oh my God! And she said,
the concern was that I wasn't his wife.
I know my wife's white, and we go check in a hotel, and same thing. She kept her maiden name, and people and one of us will be there, and they'll be like, "Oh, can I help you, sir?" I'm like, "I'm a husband, man."
Well, I said.
And this is whatever year we 2000 20.
I said if he were going to pretend that some woman was his wife, would he pick an 8.5 months pregnant black woman? I mean, give me a break.
Yeah, he went to Columbia, okay?
So she sat down and said, "Okay, let's continue with the closing." But, oh my gosh!
and that's how we managed to get the apartment in time for Dottie to go into labor the day the moving trucks came.
Yeah.
So that's why we know precisely how long we've lived in that apartment, because it's the birth date of our second daughter, Zoe.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
Yeah.
You can't make this stuff up.
No, you can't. Life's great.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it's great. It's great.
So you're at the Wall Street Journal. They made it happen in 11 days. What were you covering then? Like, I mean, you didn't go right into tastings. Like, so what initially were your assignments at the Journal?
My passion has always been race. That's why I became a journalist. I was a few days from turning 13 in 1964 when those 3 civil rights workers' bodies were found.
Mm-hmm.
And, it just seemed to me that words could make a difference. That if we could explain stuff, we could make the world a better place. And so that's why I went to the University of Missouri, world's famous school of journalism. Mm-hmm. Ron Martin, who was hiring for the Miami Herald, hired me in 2 minutes. That's what I wanted to do. So I was writing about race and small businesses and women-owned business, all of that. And he was a highfalutin editor.
Oh, you were better than being a bureau chief is being an editor at the Journal, South Miami-Dade bureau chief.
Big-time editor.
I came in as a page one editor.
Oh, wow.
The Journal in those days, when it only had those 3 front page stories, it wasn't just a matter of choosing that day's news and putting it on the front page. Those stories were weeks and months in the works. And it was rightly a very, very famous page in American journalism, as it is now. So there, the page one editor was Jim Stewart, just absolutely brilliant editor, writer, author. And he had brought me on as one of his editors. And then when Jim went off to write books full-time a couple of years later, I became the page one editor with the staff, which was just, especially working under Paul Steiger, the longtime managing editor, was like the dream job of journalism.
And Paul has said that John was the most successful page one editor the Wall Street Journal has ever had. More Pulitzer Prizes and different ones won under his time there than ever. Just
God,
awesome.
I love this show.
Awesome.
I got Pulitzer Prize winners. I got James Beard Award winners.
But wine had always been our passion.
Right, I get that.
You know,
you're
and
like, where's the wine going?
so people would come to us and ask us advice. By having friends over, and but one thing that was a constant was that the people at the Journal always talked about starting a weekend section.
Mm-hmm.
And big institutions, they take forever to change and to do things. So one day, an editor who used to work for John, but had been hired to do the weekend section, asked if we would volunteer in our spare time a wine column, because she and her husband had come and had good times at our house drinking wine. And we thought it would never happen. So we said, sure, Joanne, we'll be happy to write a wine column. And then it happened. So we thought, well, how much time could this take? Maybe we'll review 6 bottles. And we quickly found out that wasn't enough. And then maybe 4 months into it, Martha Stewart discovered us. And that was a real game changer when you're on TV. It's an amazing thing. Mm-hmm. We didn't appreciate what it was like for people to see you on TV.
I mean, especially back then. I mean, now we have social media, and but to get on TV, because they're gatekeepers. Like, everybody's going to see you. Like it's a huge thing back then. I mean, I'd love to get on TV now, but still, it's not the same. Like, back then, like, there were so many, like, I can start my own podcast. You can start a YouTube channel. There's people who have TikTok, and I don't understand 120 million, like, but there was, like, NBC, CBS, and ABC,
Mm-hmm.
and you had the other channels, but it was three major networks, and to get on one of them, you were gonna be a hit.
Yeah.
You were gonna get noticed.
Well, we got permission from the Journal to be on Martha's show because that was a demographic that
Those
was
people
great.
buy wine.
Yeah. And but she really got it. She was so smart, such a smart woman.
She really is.
Yeah. And but when you're on TV, people think that they know you, So we would travel and people would walk up to us and without any doubt in their minds, John and Dottie, right?
Yeah.
And ask us about wine. Very sweet thing.
And the other thing about Martha Stewart, especially, because we were on all sorts of shows. We were on CBS Sunday Morning several times. We were on the Today Show several times. We were on several things. But the thing about Martha's show, aside from the fact that, I don't know, Martha's just so smart and really knows how to talk to her audience in a very, very special way. Aside from that, we didn't know this at the time, but at some point, at least back then, her show was showing somewhere in the world all the time.
Right.
The repeats showed somewhere in the world all the time. People saw them forever and ever and ever, and everyone saw them. The most amazing thing about Martha's show to us was the number of guys we'd run into who would say, Dottie and John, I saw you on Martha Stewart's show, and then say, I was at the gym working out and happened to be on the TV. But everybody watched Martha's show, and so that made a huge difference to us. And then before you knew it, this little column that we thought we'd do while we were doing our regular jobs. I mean, I was page one editor. Dottie was writing about race, and we got this little wine column on the side.
And 2 little girls who were kicking our butts, Yeah.
And they just loved to see us all night tasting and talking about wine. They good thing they didn't have corkscrews, because they would have gone after us. And so after doing both jobs for 2 years, and remember, we'd never, ever written anything about wine. It was a private passion. And suddenly it's like we were public. We'd done both jobs for 2 years. We were so tired. And we went into the managing editor, Paul Steiger, and we said, we're doing both jobs. We're walking in walls. We can't do them both. We can't do our regular jobs and the wine job anymore. And he said, well, which would you rather do?
And it took us a nanosecond to say wine.
Yeah, come on. If you could write, if you're a writer and you enjoy wine,
Yeah.
and you were already writing about it, and you got a choice. Let me think. I'll go with the juice.
Well, but race.
Yeah.
It was very hard, and it remains hard for me.
Yeah.
To have walked away from that and not to be writing about it as much as I'd like to. You know?
Yeah.
I mean that's our nation's unfinished business.
Yeah.
You know? But we did it, and I'd like to think that our doing it has helped a little bit on that front. But yeah.
Well, talk about that,
we
because this is called the Black Wine Guy Experience, and like, what was it like to be the Black Wine Woman experience in an industry where most people look like your husband?
Well, I was a curiosity, I'm sure, you know. But people, it wasn't that I was diverse, that I was black. It was the way we were writing about wine that the gatekeepers did not approve of.
Okay. Say more about that.
Well, John often says that it's like they showed us the secret handshake, and they were regretting it because we were showing it to the world. You know?
Yeah.
We were writing about wine as consumers, and at the time, and probably now, a lot of people who are writing about wine are white men, and they're crazy about the minutia of it. You know, more and more, I think, partly because of us, we've broadened the definition of wine journalism. But it was as though these white guys were writing about wine for their 6 friends and their moms, you know, and they poo-pooed our column as a populist column, which I took to mean that real people read us. You know, the readers of the Wall Street Journal were very accomplished, smart, wealthy people.
Yeah.
But no one likes to be to feel stupid or taken advantage of, and
Or to be talked down to.
or to be talked down to. And a lot of wine writing was condescending then, and you don't condescend to people. You just don't. I don't care what you're writing about, and we never did. And so we had readers from all walks of life. And you know, we heard from black people, from people in Asia, people all over the world, and I'm really proud of that. They reached out to us. A big time executive at the New York Times wrote and asked us a question about wine, and we always thought, why didn't he ask the people who worked there? And I will not tell you his name.
I don't think Eric had taken over the wine.
This
yet.
was before.
It was a guy before Eric.
This was before
Yeah,
Eric.
because Eric was on, and he
Eric-
talked about
Eric's
how he
great.
got the job, but that other guy didn't want to let go of that job.
Well,
And it's funny because Eric did the same thing with food. Eric started talking about food like regular people. He would go out to the outer boroughs.
Right.
Eric is great.
Eric's-
Eric is great. And Frank Pryal was our inspiration for how to write about wine, how to think about it. You know, he had this piece that said that his best wine experience was sitting on the deck of a Navy cruiser, drinking some simple white Italian wine with his Navy friends. You know, I don't even think he identified what the wine was, but there's a time and a place for just about any kind of wine that's thoughtfully made. You know.
Yeah.
And that's what we tried to do, is we tried to put wine within the context of life. We try to write each column as a story of discovery, not, okay, we already know the end of this story. Now let's go to the beginning and tell you everything that you need to know that leads up to that. Our point was, okay, look, how is Merlot under $20 these days? We don't know. Let's go out and buy 50 randomly at stores across the U.S., put them in bags and see how they are. Let's, how is service at restaurants these days? Let's go to 10 restaurants anonymously, because incredibly, people at restaurants never noticed us. And
Our picture ran with the column, or
Right.
a line drawing.
Right.
Of a, you know.
But the idea was that we told stories in every column that basically put wine within the context of a good life. That's
Right.
what
Oh, I
wine
love
is
that.
all about. It's not this thing that's separate and apart. It's not this thing to be endlessly debated and deconstructed, unless you enjoy doing that. And the truth is that when the two of us are alone, we do endlessly debate and deconstruct because we enjoy doing that, the two of us together. And we've been doing it together for almost 50 years. But you can enjoy wine in any way you want to, but it's your choice how you want to enjoy it.
Yeah.
I agree. I tell people, first of all, you don't have to like what I like.
Yeah.
You don't have to like what Robert Parker likes. We don't have to argue. Okay, enjoy what you enjoy. And then, like you said, there's times when I do geek out. But one of the things I do, I don't like to talk about what's in the tech sheets. You can read the tech sheets.
Yeah.
I try and bring I'm getting your story here. We're not analyzing this delicious wine you brought, and I'm learning so much about you. And then the listeners are going to learn so much more about you that they didn't know. And that's because this is a conduit for conversations for me and people. And then there are times when I'm going to have my nose in a glass all night, and I'm like, what is that? What is that? That scene in Sideways, and just a flutter of, where you want, but you don't want to make people feel intimidated. I think there's a lot of people go and flex on people, you don't have to do that, man.
No, and that just, the wine industry is its worst enemy. It really is. That's a self-inflicted one, and it just keeps doing it over and over and over again.
I don't know if you've had a chance yet to read the latest State of the Wine Industry report from Silicon Valley Bank, but if you haven't, you definitely should spend the time to read it. It's absolutely terrific. They do this every year. It's terrific every year, but this year is particularly interesting and particularly chilling because it talks over and over and over again about how wine simply must grow or else it's going to be in really significant trouble. That wine has, for so many years, ignored growth among younger people, among more diverse people.
I would say that. The younger people think, because, it's like younger kids now, like White Claw, literally, what the hell? I always tell people, I was in the 90s, I was like, we didn't fall for seltzer. It was called Zima back then, and we didn't fall for it. But now they have more flavors, and you're right, they're struggling, and now, wine, the cost is going up. It's a luxury good, and like I said before, I think people can get into trouble because there's people out there who just want to make money off of wine, right? So they buy some bulk wine, they slap a label on it, and people get burnt, and then they're not going to go back to wine.
Exactly. I mean, you have to enjoy it. You have to affirmatively enjoy it, considering the number of choices that are out there. Craft beer and seltzer, and just there's so many other options. Our son-in-law, Jose, is unbelievable at making cocktails. I mean, really, it's amazing watching him work. It's absolutely fascinating, and we love tasting what he concocts. He and our daughter Media are fascinated with the whole process of drinks and cocktails. In the way that we were fascinated with wine.
Mm-hmm.
They like wine, they drink wine,
right.
But their real fascination is cocktails.
Right.
And they're 32. I think they probably speak for a large proportion of people around that age. And it's concerning about wine. And as Dottie said, the wine industry has largely brought a lot of that on itself by keeping those gates closed to people so that they don't feel that wine is a welcoming community. When you think about, like, so many people came to wine as a lifelong passion because they visited a wine region or visited a winery. But the truth is that too many wineries and too many wine regions do not appear welcoming to a lot of people. And so as a result, those people don't have a chance to fall in love. Our own story along those lines is that we had those life-changing bottles of cheap French white and red when we were very young. We increasingly got into wine, and in 1976, before the Judgment of Paris, we thought, whoa, we got to go to Napa. So we went to Napa. That was the days so small, and the actual winemakers themselves were behind the counter pouring their own wines.
And like they didn't have tasting rooms; they would pour them for free. Like you just go visit them.
my
They had
gosh.
farmers. They didn't charge
Exactly.
anything. They're like, you want to try my wine?
And that
Yes.
is the exact moment when we went from, wow, this is really good stuff, we really like this, to truly being passionate. When we looked in the eyes of those people and we realized that every good glass of wine reflects someone's passion.
It's their art. Bernard Skoda lit up when I tasted his Muscat. He could see. I learned 7 sentences in Italian the first time we went to Italy. Can we taste your wine and perhaps buy a bottle? Where's the bathroom? Can you take 2 for dinner at 8? Just essentials.
Yeah, well, exactly.
But we can communicate about wine just by joy.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's just a wonderful thing to be in love with.
Well, talking about love, 2003, Love by the Glass, their book.
Yeah.
Tell us about where they came from and what was like writing a book together. So you've done a column, but like, what's it like writing?
Well, it was hell.
Well, yeah, how do you do it?
Yeah.
How can 2 people write a memoir? That tricked up a lot of people. I would write a little bit, and then I'd leave it, and John would write a little bit. At one point, he asked, "Why didn't we get married until 5 years later?" And I wrote, "Because you were a jerk." That was what he said. That's what he said.
Because men.
That's what he sat down to the next time he picked up the book. And we left it. We left it in the book. Because you were a jerk.
The idea of the book is to tell our story, because we consider ourselves storytellers, through one critical wine that we had during that time. But there was we've mentioned the cold duck.
Yeah.
There's just every important moment in our life has some sort of wine component. There was this horrible time when our kid was very young, where Dottie was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and it turned out
Pancreatic. They gave me 2.5 to 3 months to live.
it was bad, and we had the best doctors. We were at Sloan Kettering, but it turned out that it was a false diagnosis.
Luckily, they shit the bed on that one.
Yeah, it was
gosh.
awful.
I can't even imagine someone tell you have 2. What the hell you got?
It was-
young
I know
kids?
our kids were
What
2 and 3.
were 2 and 3, and John's dad calls me one night and he says, I decided to convert to Judaism when I was 15 years before I met him, and John's dad said, "You came into the world Christian. My son and my granddaughters need you. So I prayed to my God and to Jesus to take me instead." And he and I cried. I was so loved by his folks and you by my mom. and it was a really hard thing. You know, I'm going to be gone. He's going to be left with two kids.
Yeah.
You know, but so you sort of prepare yourself, and I thought about, you know, why am I here? What's my purpose? Maybe my purpose was to have these kids,
Right.
and you know, and maybe there's another woman out there who could be a better wife and friend to him,
I
and a
found
better
several.
mother. Give me the damn
Dude,
corkscrew.
you know
He's
you-
asking
you know
for
you
it.
gotta go home with her, right?
We-
Or maybe you're
we-
not
we-
going home with it.
we do this all the time.
I know, I
We
love
do
it.
But
So we go to Sloan Kettering, and the doctor says, "I have great news. You're not dying of pancreatic cancer." And so we said, "My God, how do you know?" And he said with a big smile on his face, "Because if you were, you'd be dead." And so
Yeah.
we left there, and we went to
Yeah.
a restaurant that still exists on the east side. It
Yeah.
was like 2 p.m, so it was fairly late, and we walked in and we said, "Do you have a big red wine?" Because we thought we would celebrate. And it was a French place. Woman comes over with this giant goblet filled, and she says, "He's big enough."
I was like, it was either the glass or she brought you like a Jeroboam or Methuselah, right?
I
like I was like, yeah, here's
And-
a big
take
brother.
that with two
And
straws.
So
Yeah, oh
that's
my
the
God.
sort of thing that would be a chapter, a chapter heading in the book, a big red wine, because that's how we remember stories. That's how we tell stories. Everyone has something to do with a wine, even stories that are not great stories like this.
Yeah, but 2 months later, I was okay, and John's dad was dead.
Oh,
And I
wow,
know
that's
I know God doesn't work that way. At least I don't think God works that way. But and I never told John that about that phone call. I was just in tears and said, "Yeah, that was your dad," and we said some stuff. But when John eulogized his dad, he said, "You all know my dad was a car salesman, and I can just imagine him making the sale of his life." You know, you all probably wonder how my dad and mom received Dottie. Well, let me tell you, if there were a way, my dad would have exchanged his life for hers. And I looked at him because I hadn't told him that his dad had offered to do that. But yeah, so there's stories like that.
I mean, that's extraordinary.
And there's also stuff about Open That Bottle Night.
Yeah,
because
so you
everybody.
read my notes. Let's talk about Open That Bottle Night. We're right there.
Well,
How did Open That Bottle Night come into play?
When we started our column in 1998, the
98, right.
question that we were asked most often, over and over and over again, and it turned out to be true about every wine writer, is people write in and they say, "I have this one bottle of wine. It was given to me by my late father. It was given to me at my graduation. It's from our wedding. When is the perfect time to open it, parentheses, and how much is it worth?"
always that second part.
Yes. And we were asked this so often, and every time we'd write back, we'd say, something, just open it this weekend. Just open it, for heaven's sake. And then at some point, we got this so many times that we thought, everybody needs a little help, because everybody has that bottle. Whether you have a single bottle in the cellar or 1,000 bottles in the cellar, is that one that reminds you of your trip to Napa or your wedding, and that you cannot stand to open. So we said, all right, tell you what, on this night, let's all of us together as one open the bottle and celebrate the bottle.
And we thought, that's one more column done. But also, we thought we'd get a few letters, just a few, and they started to trickle in, and they were so heartfelt. And this was when people actually wrote letters, and put stamps on them.
I know.
The art of writing.
and writing, not printing.
Right.
What was
Cursive.
called cursive.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And really, really sweet letters. One couple said that they'd opened something and romance ensued. And as these letters would come in, John would put them on the editor's desk. And you remember the movie Miracle on 34th Street?
Yeah.
Where the mailmen come in to prove that Santa is Santa Claus? Well, the mailroom would come in with bags of letters. We got over 1,000 letters in response to that column. And one was from John Watson, who said, if only you had come up with this idea a year earlier, the love of my life would be here in person instead of in spirit to have enjoyed this wine with me.
John Watson from IBM?
No,
Oh,
this
okay.
is John Watson who, what did John do?
Remember, he was from Pennsylvania.
He was from Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And
Mary.
his wife Mary, no, his
right.
So we kept up with John Watson.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, we led the follow-up column with that quote because people were, I mean, they were sharing some really sweet and heavy and sometimes tragic stuff with us. And we heard from John Watson maybe a couple years later on a wine cruise in France. He had met Mary, and they'd gone halvesies on a column, no, on a case of wine. She lived in the Northeast, so she took half the case with her, and he kept half, and they kept this conversation going. And then John would spend time with Mary in the Pacific Northwest, and then they got married, and all this was unfolding on Open That Bottle nights, and their kids sent us a picture of their wedding, you know, and he said this is a testament that you can have a second love, and how wine can do that. All of this happened because of wine, and John died about maybe 6 years ago, and the obituary that ran included him saying that he was so happy to be part of our column because it did make the point that you're never too old to find love again.
So this year, Open That Bottle Night is celebrated the last Saturday of every February. It seemed like a good time to do it because we all need it. We've been doing it now for, I guess, about 22 years.
First one was 1999.
And
Yeah, Y2K.
yeah.
I moved out to California. I'm going to die. I'm going to live in California. Remember that shit?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, all the planes were gonna and
Computers are going to go, and the systems are going to go
Right.
like crash.
right.
Yeah.
So February 26th, the idea is we all have that bottle. Some of us have more than one, and just don't keep it anymore. There are memories inside that bottle. Open the bottle, talk about the bottle, talk about where the bottle came from. Enjoy the memories. Let the memories out, because nobody's guaranteed tomorrow. We've all learned that, especially over the past couple of years.
Yeah.
And the fact is that while people say to us that because they've been kind of stuck inside for the past 2 years, oh my gosh, all of my bottles are open. I don't have any Open That Bottle Night bottles. But you know what? You do. Everybody does.
Well, but even if they don't, there's some wine that they've been thinking about trying. Maybe now's a good time to do it.
Go buy that bottle.
Right.
To open that
Go
bottle.
buy.
You know?
Yeah. It's not the wine. It's the community. You know, it's the sharing.
Yeah, I think. Did it experience a resurgence during the pandemic? It's always been there, but I think that's when I kind of picked up on it. You know,
we have told people, don't wait for the official date.
right.
Do it all the time.
I pretty much do. I have people like Tuesday night wine. I'm like, listen, if I just want to drink this tonight, because I might not be, like you said, I might not be here tomorrow.
No one is promised tomorrow.
Right.
So we always said from the beginning,
Monday night wine. What are you talking about?
It's officially the last Saturday
Right.
in February, but do it as often as you can.
Yeah.
And you know, in the before times, people would have wonderful parties. Nonprofits would use it to raise money for abused children's services.
Mm-hmm.
Restaurants would use it. It grew to be something really lovely that people all over the world are looking forward to. We heard from people who hiked to mountaintops with a special bottle. One guy was coming out of his castle's basement and dropped it. And he said he sat on the stone steps and took out his handkerchief and soaked up as much as he could in Scotland. You know? I mean, people, they're into it. People love romance.
Yeah.
You know? And what's a more romantic beverage? You know? You know, it's wonderful, and it's an excuse. We celebrate Beaujolais Nouveau Day. You know, it's an excuse for a party.
Right,
Okay,
right.
we know it's not great wine.
Right.
Who cares?
Right.
It's an excuse for a party.
Yeah.
With wine. You know.
Not mad at you.
we heard from a Cuban couple in Miami that got in their hot tub with their special bottle with Mr. Barry White in the back. Right.
Mr. Barry White.
Yeah, Mr. Barry White. And we know romance ensued when Barry White.
If you got some wine and Barry White, it's done.
Yeah.
It's a wrap.
People shared stuff like that.
That's amazing, because we live now, and you guys, we live in this world where it's very fast. It's high tech, low touch. It's easy to just hit like and just scroll through, but to take the time and to write you a letter, like what's it like to really, like, what's it like to be a real influencer? Like, you have documented proof. Like, people take their time to write a letter, like risk getting a paper cut on their tongue and put a stamp on it and mail it to you.
Well, they felt that they knew us.
Mm.
You know, that we were the people next door who knew a little bit about wine, who they could talk to. Mm. And we put it all out there for them. You know? Our kids were regular parts of our column.
To their horror.
I know your one daughter, Zoe, does she sing about you guys? Does she ever sing about you in her songs? Like,
she says that she knows about love because she sees it.
oh, wow.
Yeah. Zoe's a badass professional drummer.
Yeah.
But her passion project it's called Hush Puppy, and she sings and writes and was recording with us. We made the Rec Room a studio for her. She recorded an album. And, you know, during lockdown, live performances just went away.
Oh, that was the worst. We love live music.
Yeah,
and like it was just like,
yeah.
And I don't know, like, have I been to a show since? I don't know. Like, yeah, it's crazy. And literally, we went to a show. It was on Valentine's Day. Went to see Raphael Sadiq at the New Jersey Pack, and it was on Valentine's Day, and that was right before everything started going crazy, February 14th of 2020. That was, you know, like, you knew it was there, but like there was no restrictions. I mean, we were in the New Jersey, we were like, there's 5,000 people in the theater just on top of each other in February of 2020.
You were lucky.
Yeah. I was lucky because I saw some good live music.
Yeah.
Our pandemic story, I think pretty much everybody has a pandemic, like the curtain coming down kind of story with pandemic. Ours is that we went to Napa for our papers going into the University of California at Davis. There was this really wonderful event at Copia in Napa, and to celebrate our papers going into University of California at Davis, and it was just a spectacular event. We flew out there, and we were first going to go to Davis to visit the people at Davis, and we'd heard this vague thing about this thing that was out there, and we had this horrible trip in from the San Francisco airport to Davis. The trip just there were accidents. It was terrible. We finally got there. It was like, oh my gosh, such a relief. We're finally here. We checked into our hotel in Davis. Phone rang. It was our daughter saying, "Did you see the news? They've identified the first COVID case in the United States. It's at the University of California Davis Hospital." And it was like, oh my God. I mean, it was like we just we've just actually just flown right into it. Right. So we had our wonderful event. We spent a few extra days in Napa. It was just the most wonderful thing, and people kept talking about it. And by the time we left, just a few days later, flights were being canceled. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it happened that quickly. We got back here, and our daughter Media's birthday is March 12th. We planned to celebrate with her. But on March 12th, we fled the city and essentially haven't really come back full time.
Yeah, but that celebrating of our papers in Napa happened on Open That Bottle Night. It was leap year.
That's right.
It was leap year.
Yeah,
I know it very well.
Yeah.
So we're coming up to our end of our time here. What are you opening for Open That Bottle Night 2022?
Oh, jeez, we haven't decided.
Neither have I.
You know,
yeah.
And we're so guilty. We have so many bottles that are great candidates. We look at them every year, and we think, we can't do that. You know, that's signed by the winemaker who's been dead for 20 years. You know, and it's hard. It really is hard.
The ones from the wineries that have gone out of business, or the winemakers who are no longer with us, mm-hmm. those are really the hardest. Those are exactly the ones that we tell people you've got to open, but the ones that are hardest to open. Yeah. But those are the ones that really need to be opened, because those winemakers and those wineries, they deserve to have you clink a glass of them.
So you got me now. I think I'm going to open something by Philippe Canby, because I love her own stuff. So I got to find what I got from Philippe and his hand on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one last question for you two. What are you most excited about in wine moving forward? What do you see in the future? What excites you about the future of wine?
Oh, for me, it's the many diverse voices. Finally! Hallelujah! You know, for years we didn't go to industry events. We only went to things that the public could go to. Mm-hmm. That we were the public's stand-in, and if they couldn't, we didn't. So we didn't go to walk around tastings until after we left the Journal. I think, except for the wine spectators, because you could buy a ticket to that. Yeah. And forever I was the only black person there. And it's wonderful to see the BIPOC community, LGBTQ plus. You know, it's great to hear the voices and to see the representation. Yeah. So I can't wait to hear more and to see more of that.
No, and I feel the same way. It's like if you have a good Instagram, Twitter feed, you're following people, the number of diverse new voices out there of all kinds, it's just great, because people are saying different things. Mm-hmm. They're approaching wine in a different way. They're looking at different winemakers. They're looking at different grapes. They're looking at different regions. They're looking at different people. And it just makes it so much more fun to hear the same story told from different points of view.
Awesome. Oh, Dottie and John, thank you so much for coming on, spending this time with me, and really honor to have you here. Please tell people where they can find you and how they can be a part of what you're doing.
We are on. I get confused. We're either Dottie and John or Wine Couple on Instagram.
I follow Dottie and John. Most people don't follow Wine Couple, I think, but I don't know. But Dottie and John. So there you go, Dottie and John, or at Wine Couple.
And Dottie and John or Wine Couple on Facebook, Instagram,
it is
and
Faceagram.
Twitter.
They own it.
Yeah, it's like
it's Metagram, whatever.
Yeah, and
it is
really we love hearing from people. We really do.
We do.
Yeah. And everybody, definitely pick up a copy of Love by the Glass. I got mine off of Amazon. You probably can find it on Amazon. But if there's a local bookstore, well, are there local bookstores? But it's a great book. Vignettes about wine, life, and love. Until the next time, everybody, this is your boy MJ. Cheers to the Mavericks, philosophers, deep thinkers, and wine drinkers. My guests today qualify for all those. We'll talk to you guys later. Peace.